Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this live signing of Wild Symphony by our favorite internationally best-selling author, Dan Brown. I'm Danny Valadares, editor for Rodale Kids at Random House Children's Book, and the very fortunate editor that got to work on this wonderful book with Dan. Joining us today, of course, is the author himself. Hello, Dan. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. We're happy to be here and great to sort of see you, at least virtually.
I know it's so nice to be in the same digital room as you. It feels like it's been forever. In that same vein, it's so great to have this live signing available to us so that all of your fans and friends can join us here today. As much as I'd like us all to be in the same room, at least we can all collect together and ask you some fun questions and get our signed copies. It's going to be a great experience. And folks, if you're still looking for your own signed copy, you can go to premiercollectibles.com/wild, and I believe it is linked in this video as well. So Dan, we've received a wealth of questions from your fans, and I'm itching to get into those. But before I think it would be a treat if everyone could hear about the book directly from you.
Oh, well, yeah, this book came about in a kind of funny way. I'll rewind to the beginning. When I grew up, my parents did not believe in television. They did not want us to have a TV. So we had picture books and went to the library every couple of days and got a new stash of picture books. And I spent a lot of my childhood reading picture books, loved Dr. Seuss, loved Richard Scarry, loved Marie Sendak. And while I read those picture books on the floor of our living room, I would listen to my parents' record collection. My mom was a professional classical musician, and so that all they had was classical music. So I have these very, very fond memories of reading picture books, listening to classical music. And I wanted to create a project that gave kids today sort of that similar experience. But I wanted to take it a step further such that the classical music they're hearing related directly to what they were reading and what they were seeing. And that's really the genesis of the Wild Symphony concept. The first song that I wrote was Happy Frogs. And I was, I know you know this story, but I was listening to some frogs in a bog. There was a big bullfrog down low, and there were some peepers up high and some little frogs in the middle. And it sounded like music to me. So I went home and I wrote this little fugue that I called Happy Frogs, based on what I'd heard out there. And figured, well, nobody's going to know this is frogs. So I wrote a little poem saying, about frogs. And I included at the end a little moral that, hey, we're all different sizes and shapes and colors, and we have different voices, but if we work together, we can make beautiful music. And it was just this nice little package of music and text and a sort of a kind idea. And I thought, I'm going to do that again. So I wrote another animal, and now, of course, here we are.
It's so true. That translates so perfectly to a children's book. And for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet, it only came out yesterday. Can you give us a little background on the story?
Sure. Well, the story is the protagonist in this children's thriller is a character named Maestro Mouse. And Maestro Mouse is the conductor of an orchestra. And kids are saying, wait, a mouse is too small. I said, well, that's why it's funny. A conductor has to be somebody who's big in front of the orchestra that everybody can see. And the notion of a tiny little mouse, behind a tiny little podium conducting was funny to me. I mean, especially if he's next to a hippopotamus playing a bassoon, it's extra funny. So Maestro Mouse is the head of this orchestra, and he wants to put on a show. And so he travels the world. He goes through the deserts and the jungles and the woods and underseas, collecting all of his animal friends, each one of which plays a different instrument. And so on every page, we meet a new one of his animal friends. We might meet an elephant or an ostrich or a busy beetle or a cheetah, depending on where we are. And they all have a different lesson to teach. The ostrich is kind of funny that when people say, you wrote a song about an ostrich. I say, well, the thing that an ostrich can teach us, we've all been stressed out. And, sometimes kids, if you get stressed out and you just want to spend time alone, you're not sure that's the right thing to do. Well, ostriches do it all the time. So if you're a kid and are under pressure and want to just go get in your room and turn on the lights and close the door and be alone for a while, like that's okay. and the ostrich teaches you that it's okay, and also that at some point you got to pull your head back out of the sand and reconnect with your family and friends. So it's a little morals like that. So that's the thrust of the book. He collects a complete orchestra, and each animal also has a piece of classical music goes along with it that you can listen to in conjunction with reading. You can listen to it alone. The book works without music. The music works without book. It's sort of all interchangeable.
I love that you told the story of the anxious ostrich, because I identify very strongly with that animal.
With the ostrich.
That's how I've been for the past 2 years. So excited to get this book out there, and it finally exists. Very great time of the year for both of us, I think. And you also have puzzles throughout, right?
Yeah, well, I've always been a big fan of codes, and anybody who's read any of my interviews knows probably I've been on Christmas morning when I was a kid. I would come down on Christmas morning to the Christmas tree, and there were no presents beneath the tree. There was just an envelope with my name on it, and I'd open it, and there would be a code, and it might send me to the refrigerator once I solved it, and there'd be another code in the refrigerator, and I'd solve that, and it would point me out to the wood pile, down to the basement, wherever, until finally it led me to where my presents were hidden. So since I was a little kid, I have absolutely loved treasure hunts, loved codes. My mom was a professional musician, so I was very tied to music, and that's a symbolic language. It's a code of sorts. My dad's a math teacher and a mathematics author. In fact, I'm sure a lot of people on this event have used my dad's textbooks. He wrote 11 of them that are used all over the world. So math is another symbolic language. So that's kind of how I got addicted to codes. And when I wrote a children's book, I thought, well, it has to have codes in it. So on each page, it's funny, the kids that I've seen interacting with the book, they immediately see the codes on the page and say, wait, there's the letter A hiding in the grass, and up in this tree, there's the letter P. And what do I do? And they sort of figure it out. And then the point is, if you find all the letters, you can spell an instrument from the orchestra. And the kids I've seen, they understand it immediately. And I think their eyes must be really good, because I remember when you and I were editing this, you would send the drawings. I say, wait, page 5's missing a letter. Like, no, it's there. And I've got my glasses, a magnifying glass. I'm like, it's not there. Yeah, look under the boar's foot or whatever it was. It's like, oh yeah, okay, never mind. And of course the kids instantly, no, I got it. It's all here. So
You, me, and Nicole, the designer, had so many fun late evenings on the phone going through those spreads, trying to figure out just the perfect amount of hidden those letters had to be.
Yeah.
I think it turned out wonderfully, though, if kids are spotting them, but I think a lot of adults are missing them from what I've heard.
Yeah, kind of funny. And there's some hard codes in the book too, as you know, that some people may never see. There's a code you have to even read music to know how to decipher. There's all sorts of stuff going on in this book that people may find, a year later.
And that's what I love. It's compulsively rereadable. There's always something new to find. And just one more thing before we get into the fan questions. We can't start this discussion off without touching on the app, which is so innovative and incredible. I know the background of it, but let everybody else know what made you decide to bring an app into this project.
Yeah, well, you know what? If this book had come out 10 years ago, we might have had a CD slid inside the jacket, a CD of music that you listen to while you're reading the book. But we don't do that anymore. And I really wanted a seamless experience, such that the music accompanied the book in a seamless way. So spent the last year with an incredible group of designers coming up with an augmented reality app, just the Wild Symphony app, which is a free app, by the way. That enables you to just hold a smartphone over any page of the book, and it will play the appropriate music for that page. The kids have seen it, are like, it's magic. How does it know? It's TensorFlow technology. That's all I know. It somehow knows what page you're on by seeing the page and identifying it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, having witnessed this process from the start, I still think it's magic. Technology is clearly not my space, but I was playing with it all day yesterday, just flipping back and forth between the pages.
It's so fun. Yeah.
So fast and fun.
The great thing is it also will send the signal to your earbuds or your Sonos or your car, whatever Bluetooth system you have there. And if you don't want to don't want to hold the phone up, you can also just navigate using arrows. It's a very simple app. I wanted to be sure that this is really an experience about a book. And I wanted to be sure the kids didn't get lost in their phones. That's sort of, we're trying to get away from that technology and focus on the book. So the app has no animation, no, no puzzles, no games, no notifications, no social media. It really is very specifically to accompany the book musically and nothing else.
I love it. It inspires family time and just really being in the present with each other, which is so important to people, especially now, everybody getting to spend more time together. Well, just to hold it up one more time, this is Wild Symphony, the beautiful book itself. Great job, Dan.
Ditto.
So, so I think it's time to get into the fan questions, shall we?
Is Busy Bee on the front of this?
Of course he is. There's a bee hidden on absolutely every page of this book.
That was a leading question. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. So, Richard Scarry, I think it was What Do People Do All Day, had a little worm hidden on every single page. And I always love looking for that worm. And now you've got kids looking for the buzzing bee on every page of this book. And, we always put them somewhere funny, in a wild boar's nostril or, just funny places.
Don't give away too many.
Okay, never mind.
Just teasing. Okay, so starting in on the questions, I think we already touched upon this, but Adrian from Lake Ridge, Virginia would like to know what inspired you to write a children's book after so many adult books.
Yeah, well, a lot of it had to do with wanting to recreate the experience I had as a child. And, it's funny, novelists work all alone. We don't collaborate. At some point, we, hand our manuscripts off to editors. But the process is really solitary. And this book, to work with you, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth making this book, to work with an illustrator, to work with a conductor, a music producer, 80 musicians, an entire recording crew. It was a massive collaboration. And so that was also interesting to me. One of the reasons I was drawn to actually do this project. I've written 7 adult novels in a row, and this just seemed like the moment to do this. I really enjoyed the process.
I'm so glad to hear that. I will say this is a far more involved picture book than I've ever worked on before. So this was very unique to you. And I was astounded by how well you navigated having all these different aspects floating around and how well we were all able to collaborate with each other, even just publishing and composer side. It's been such an eye-opening experience, and all to thank for you because you're the one who made sure it was all kind of fitting together perfectly.
Well, some great people that I was able to work with. And so thank you for that too.
So our next question is, how was it writing your first children's book? Anna from New South Wales has asked. It sounds like it was pretty good.
It was, it was fantastic. It was fun. It was light. I mean, it's a light project, but we took it dead seriously. I mean, the meter of the poems had to be exact. The drawings had to be exact. I worked for many years on the music, and those recording sessions were, they were fun, but they were intense. I wanted all the music to be right. So it was fun, but it was also an exacting process.
Let's pause there because I'm sure that everybody here knows, how long ago did you write the original pieces for Wild Symphony?
I was about 28 when I wrote the first piece for Wild Symphony, and I wrote I think I wrote 8 pieces, maybe 10, I can't remember. 10 pieces of music, 10 poems. And I printed the poems myself just on a Xerox machine and cut them and bound them into these little books, ran off some cassettes. It was called Synth Animals, was what I called it, and sold it on consignment at the local bookstore. And I think over the course of a year or two, sold about 500 copies and then just forgot about it. And 2 years ago, it resurfaced in my life, and we all decided to dig in, do it for real. And so I wrote, 10 more poems, 10 more pieces of music, went back and orchestrated the original music and modified it, worked on the original poems to clean them up a little bit, and got an amazing illustrator in Susan Botchery, just terrific.
Absolutely. Her art is incredible. And I love that these songs were decades in the making and they've come so far. It's
They
just,
have.
it's wonderful. Although it came to me first in the form of a CD, I think called Music on
Music,
Emalia.
you're right. So it about 5 years, I think, after Synth Animals ran out, I had people asking me for it, and CD technology had now appeared, and I didn't like the name Synth Animals anymore, so I called it Music on Emalia and printed it as a CD. Um, and sold 500 of those, and then they were gone, and now with a little luck we'll do better with this book. We'll see.
It's this amazing evolution. It's kind of appropriate for a book about wild animals now.
Actually,
Um,
it is.
let's see what the next question is. Oh, what parallels or references to your adult novels does this book have? Asks Jesus from Maryland.
Wow, that's an interesting question. If I understand what you're asking, I'll answer it this way. There is an enormous parallel between writing music and writing novels. You cannot write a piece of music without understanding structure, and you can't write a novel without understanding structure. You also, I mean, you could have the very best melodies, and if you don't put them in the right order, they don't sound right. If you could have all the greatest plot twists, if you don't put them in the right order, they're not right. You have to understand dynamics in both. You can't have 5 fortissimo sections in a row. You can't have 5 chase scenes in a row. You need interstitial material to separate them, let the reader or the listener breathe a little bit in between those sections. You have to understand thematic material rising and falling in both. Musical material has themes that appear and disappear. Novels have themes that appear and disappear. Um, I think that a good musical line asks a question and gives an answer. The same with a good paragraph or a good chapter. So they're really very, very similar practices. Yeah, a different side of the brain, and they seem very, very different. But to my mind, they're quite similar. And if you're asking about a direct reference, there is only one direct reference to one of my adult novels hidden in this book, and I'd tell you what it is, but Danny would have my head. So you can look for it. It's pretty funny.
Yes, I would. I look forward to the first person who finds it. I've yet to encounter somebody who has discovered it.
Yeah,
So
no, neither have I. Yeah, it's there.
challenge everyone. Let's see what's up next. How much time do you dedicate to researching a book before writing it? I think your work is incredible. Thank you, says Jennifer McKenna from the United Kingdom.
Oh, well, thanks, Jennifer McKenna from the United Kingdom. That's nice of you to say. It kind of depends on the book, but a minimum of a year, sometimes 2 years. For some reason, I decided to write about really hard things that I was not an expert in when I started the novel. So if I'm writing about artificial intelligence, it takes a while to read a lot about artificial intelligence, to talk to a lot of computer specialists and AI scientists. Inferno, I was writing about virology and global pandemics and vector viruses and Dante, tying a 13th century poem to a modern plague. So in order to write books that we can all read without feeling like we're reading a textbook, I really need a lot of understanding of a topic, and that just takes time. And I grew up, both of my parents were teachers. I grew up on the campus of a prep school in a dormitory. All the adults around me were teachers, and my first babysitters were all hardcore students. And I just always thought learning was fun. That's the way I grew up. And I try to write books where not only I can learn something writing them, but readers can learn something reading them.
I think you definitely achieved that. And there's certainly a parallel there to what you've done with Wild Symphony, which is take some big lessons that I think even adults really should learn, such as the anxious ostrich,
Yeah.
and you make them so accessible so that a kid can really kind of absorb that and put it into their everyday life. It's a level of mindfulness that I don't think, like I said, most adults have, but you've really managed to communicate with kids so well.
Well, I hope so. It's funny. Some of these lessons and these little morals, to some of us may be self-evident, but to some of us they may not be. And it's funny. I think I think the children today live in a very fragmented society. They grow up with a lot of stresses and distractions that I didn't have growing up, and certainly social media can just it can make an adult's mind scramble. I can't imagine what it does to kids. So the hope was really that here are some quiet, simple lessons um, in a very palatable, easy to process form that might help kids navigate their lives a little bit and think about things like compassion and diversity and kindness and patience and some of these values that can disappear in when there's chaos.
Yes, that's so true. And I really think you've achieved that with this book. I'll say you are a great advocate for it because you really embody all of those characteristics. You are quite beloved to everyone who works with you.
Thank you.
Also, wait, sorry, I really wanted to backtrack. Do you absorb all of that information from your research? Do you still contain that within your brain? Because that's a lot.
I'm going to pretend I know every single thing that I've ever learned to write these books. That is not the case. It's kind of funny. Somebody said, like, how can you know all the stuff that you have to put into a book? And I had told them I gave this master class, and I said, you don't have to know it all in the same day. You might be writing a section about a very complicated piece of art, and for that week that you're writing about it, you know it all. But a couple months later, you probably don't know it nearly as well as you did, earlier. And then a year later, you can barely remember the name of the painting. So um, I think for a lot of novelists, especially as I was going to say as we get older, but it's sort of harder to hold a ton of information all at the same time. And I think most novelists it's kind of like a hard drive. You fill up the hard drive, publish the novel, then reformat the drive and start all over. I wish I had multiple hard drives and I could just, do this, but I kind of have to erase some of what I'm doing in order to make room for what's coming.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you kind of have to go through the files and clear out what's not truly necessary just so that you can gift us another book.
There you go. Yep.
Which we appreciate. Thank you. Okay, up next from Christy from South Carolina. She says, I am a public school teacher. What inspired you to write about the symphony? Which I think we know a little bit, but.
Well, it's funny. As I said, I didn't have a television. I grew up on the campus of a boarding school, and there were concerts on campus almost every night. Some sort of concert, almost always classical. There were students giving performances. The concert started at 7 o'clock and they went to 7:45, such that the kids could get back to their dorms by 8. So it was like the perfect length for a concert. It wasn't too much for a kid. And we didn't have a TV, and I went to a lot of these concerts, and just became a huge fan of orchestral music. And again, I listened to music a lot when I was a kid, and I loved all the big orchestral stuff. I loved 1812 Overture, Carmina Burana, which I realize is loved Ode to Joy, the last movement of Beethoven's Ninth. Loved the Brandenburg concertos, water music, Nutcracker Suite, all of that stuff. Those were my favorite songs growing up, until I was given a radio for one of my birthdays, probably 10 or so, and I discovered pop music, and loved them both, and actually think that pop music is very classical in its origins. At least the pop music I like, which is the Beatles or the Beach Boys or the Eagles, just very harmonic, melodic music.
I'm gonna say, and great taste, by the way. So you really just created exactly what you loved as a kid, but again, in a more accessible form for kids nowadays. That's wonderful.
Well, it's funny when you're a creative person. All you really have to guide you is your own taste. I don't care if you're a novelist, a painter, or a chef, you've got to create the book, the painting, or the souffle that you personally like, and then you just hope people share your taste. And that's what I did. That's what I've done with all of my novels. That I write the book I would want to read, and I know that some people will share my taste and some people won't, and that's just the nature of the creative process. And with Wild Symphony, I just said, I want to write the book that would have been my favorite book as a kid. That's my goal. And so that's all I had to guide me. What would I like?
I think it turned out great. It's my dream childhood book too. I love this question. Christy from Tasmania says, "What's the wildest symphony you've ever attended?"
Wow, the wildest symphony I ever attended. Um, I wasn't in attendance. I was there virtually,
Mhm.
but there was a concert recently where, oh, who is the it's some heavy metal band that's incredibly popular, played with the London Symphony, and they did their entire repertoire orchestrally. I was Metallica.
Oh
So
my gosh.
if you want to see something absolutely fascinating, search for a video on Metallica and orchestras, and you will be amazed. First of all, how talented the guys in Metallica are. Okay, I'm not familiar with their music, and how well it translated to orchestral music. It was kind of a wild fusion. So that's my Tasmanian answer.
That is a far more interesting answer than I thought was possible. That's awesome. Wow. Okay. Next up, oh, actually, everyone, a reminder that you can still get your own copy, signed copy of a book at premiercollectibles.com/wild, or you can click the link in this video. Let's see. Ooh, what is your favorite instrument? Asks Beverly from Michigan.
Uh, Beverly, I'm a big fan of the piano. It's because it's the only instrument I can play with any sort of proficiency. I can bang on the drums or play guitar a little bit. I cannot get a flute to make any sound. And you definitely don't want to hear me play a reeded instrument. I've tried. Piano is my favorite instrument. It's the instrument my mom played and the instrument I grew up with. And it's where I do all of my writing.
Can I ask roughly how many instruments you tried playing in one way or another?
Myself,
Yeah,
uh, I mean,
sounds like you've tested a few.
yeah, you know what, tested is the right term. I play one instrument. I might be able to play Fire and Rain on a guitar, maybe. Uh, it's been a while, but I play one instrument. It's funny, I mean, instruments like the trumpet, any instrument where you have to have an embouchure and create sound through a horn, that takes muscles that develop over time. I don't have them. A reeded instrument takes a level of delicacy that also takes time. And it's funny. If I have a weakness musically, it's definitely rhythm. I struggle with. I don't have a great sense of rhythm. I can hear it, but I can't do it. If that makes any sense. And so drums really have never been my friend. So fortunately, when I orchestrate music for an orchestra, I'm doing it in a computer, and the computer will correct my bad time, and then I can hand it off to an orchestra, and they'll play it right. But I don't usually get it right the first time.
I feel like we've just walked right into this question. What was the hardest composition for you to create, for you to complete?
Wow, a couple of them. The Ray, which is I think my favorite piece of music.
It's gorgeous.
We had to create this ambiental feeling that you were underwater, and we experimented and developed some really unique ways of playing instruments. So if you listen to the Ray, what you will hear, and there's a video actually that shows how we did it. Um, we used a bow from a cello or a violin, and we bowed the outside of cymbals. We bowed the edges of xylophone notes that created this really sort of bell-like quality, a shimmer.
Mhm.
That was really exciting uh, to do and very challenging. And I think the other piece that was the most challenging was Rats. And if you listen to Rats, it's big, it's loud, it's fast, it's kind of scary. And I remember when I was live, I was in maybe the third row of this empty concert hall as we were practicing it, and I had to get up between takes and move back because it was so loud it hurt my ears. It was pretty funny. That's a fun piece and a piece that kids just love.
That's appropriate because that poem is titled Rat Attack, so it best
Yes, rat
attack.
attack. It is an attack.
A very nice question here from Stephanie in Rockville, Maryland. If you could tell my elementary music students something, what would you share?
I would share that music can be your best friend when you're sad. Music can be your best friend when you're happy, and it'll help you celebrate. It can help calm you down. It can give you energy. Music uh, is something that you have the opportunity to include in your life at any moment, especially now with technology, whatever kind of music you want to hear, you can. And maybe rather than filling your eyes with videos and whatever it is you're doing, um, now and then lean on your ears a little bit and listen. It might help you hear the world in a slightly different way.
I love that. I hope they take that to heart. It's a very sweet sentiment. Um, Bernardo from, I'm not, I'm not actually sure what it is. Bashi
Okay.
um, says, will you be adapting this into animation sooner or later? Do you have any interest in that?
Yeah, I think this could be a modern Fantasia. I think given the, if a Disney or a Pixar decided like we could make a modern Fantasia out of this, I would certainly take that phone call. It seems like a really fun idea, but that's sort of down the road. At the moment, there's a simplicity to a children's book, to a picture book, and I'd love it to sort of stay this way for a while.
Mhm.
But at some point, I'm sure this will evolve into something bigger and grander and animated. So, but I'm in no hurry.
I agree. The question that has been asked by many folks, and I'm sure you see coming, from Barbara M. in Ohio, is this the first of many children's
Well, Barbara, you're asking me in front of my editor,
books?
so I feel like I'm under enormous pressure. Um, I have learned never to say never. I had an amazing time writing this book, and I would pair with the same team, with you, Danny, with Susan Baturi, with the whole team, in 2 seconds and do it again. Um, right now, I'm in the middle of a new Langdon book, um, and you know, I guess Danny, you can call me if you have an idea. We've joked about wild salad, um, you know, poems about vegetables. I'm not sure it has the same appeal, but we'll see.
Yes, I'll say certainly nothing is off the table, but the folks at Doubleday might kill me if I ask you to stop writing your next Langdon book, as would everybody in this group, I'm sure.
Okay, I will continue.
Okay. So, Barbara from Pitt asks, do you find historically based thrillers slash mysteries or children's books easier to write and why?
Wow. You know, it's funny. I think a lot of people who look at children's books say, like, I could have done that. And it turns out it's really hard. um, especially if you're writing poetry,
Mhm.
uh, poetry for kids. I mean, when I write thrillers, I don't really have to think about, well, should I use this word? Are there people who aren't going to know it? What's the age group? You know, and I can deal with really complicated themes. And so in some ways, when you take away, it's sort of like you have a giant palette of paint with which to paint your picture, and you really whittle it down to a few primary colors. You say, no, no, this is your palette now. This is what you get to paint with. And it was both limiting and freeing at the same time. And I just embraced the challenge, and it made a lot of mistakes along the way, and eventually got it right, which is
I'll say
frankly how I write novels.
I'll say that the transition between those two voices is challenging for everyone. And even just transitioning from a slightly like a middle grade book down to a picture book, it's really difficult. So you've really pulled it off. And I'd love to give folks a little bit of insight into the early editorial process, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. I remember, I think my favorite stage of all of this was the very beginning when we were just taking your wonderful poems and tweaking them ever so slightly to kind of transform it into a real picture book manuscript. And I feel like we would hop on the phone all the time and just get really into this one word in a specific poem. And when we'd finally hang up, sometimes satisfied, sometimes not, we went back to it a lot of times. An hour or two would have passed. And that's the level of thoughtfulness you put
Yeah.
into every word of this book. And I love that. I love that.
It was a fantastic process. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Not every author puts that level of thoughtfulness into
Well,
every word.
nor does every editor, and I'm a little compulsive about getting things exact, and so you guys were very patient with me, especially as you started tweaking drawings, and you can ask the music producer what I was like. This is perfect, except that, there's one note in the bassoon in measure 42 that I can't live with it. Just can't. That's right.
I can't imagine what it would have been like on the music side, but on the book side, it's so satisfying because you know that when you hold the book at the end of the day, 2 years later, because this is a 2-year process, it's so you know that you're happy with everything in there and like the best possible book. No corners were skipped. Everything was just thoughtfully placed throughout. And on to the next question. More questions about you writing more children's books.
Okay.
Here's the next one. Donna in Tucson, Arizona asks, at what age did you know you wanted to become a writer?
Wow. Well, in a closet behind me, well, it's not a closet, it's a bookshelf actually that rotates like Scooby-Doo. There is a hidden shelf that has my first book I ever wrote on it. And I wrote it when I was 5. It was called The Giraffe, the Pig, and the Pants on Fire. I still have it. I dictated it to my mother and she wrote the text and I drew the pictures and we bound it together, made a print run of 1 copy, and I've got it right here. And that's when I kind of knew I wanted to be a writer.
So age 5.
Age 5. Listen, I've read The Giraffe, the Pig, and the Pants on Fire, recently, and it's really not very good. It's
I'm sure it holds up.
For a 5-year-old, it might be okay. It doesn't make a lot of sense actually, but it's funny to read.
I will say we don't have a giraffe or a pig in Wild Symphony, and now I'm a little sad about that. Maybe in the eventual sequel, giraffe and pig must be included.
Exactly. Wild Symphony Part 2.
Your parents also, by the way, every story you tell about them, they sound so incredible and supportive and creative. What a lovely environment to grow up in.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's been scientifically proven that exposure to music, especially classical music at a young age, really young age for kids, actually changes the way your brain develops. And on average, these kids are more imaginative, more creative, and actually calmer, strangely. I didn't believe it until I saw all the statistics. But when I look back at my parents saying, no TV, you're going to listen to a lot of classical music, which I have 3, I'm one of 3 kids. So I grew up and I was a writer. My sister's a professional painter and my brother's a professional musician. And you sort of say like, well, what are the chances of that? That everybody decides to go be creative and does that.
I think that it actually makes a lot of sense that classical music results in calmer kids, because I think it helps you get in touch with your emotions and understand how to control your own feelings.
Yeah.
That's my experience with music. I certainly feel like my mood can be easily affected by music. So calming music like classical music, I think, can make a real impact.
Yeah.
Lloyd from California says, what were some of the authors that have shaped your writing style?
Well, I'm not sure whether you're talking about children's books. I'll tell you, children's books, probably Dr. Seuss, above all. For adult fiction, wow. I loved the Born Identity series. I really think that is a pinnacle of, not the movies, the books. Are incredibly well done, and that inspired me to want to write about different places in the world. This will sound very, very geeky, but I like the humor and the wordplay in some of Shakespeare's plays, and the meter. And I read almost exclusively nonfiction. So the books that inspire me most are books on religion or philosophy or history or science. I'm reading a physics book now that, I understand maybe half of it, but the half I understand is really inspirational.
I'm not at all surprised by that based on your adult novels. And the Dr. Seuss is thoroughly present in Wild Symphony. Yeah, the rhyme is really lovely and it definitely harkens back to reading those as a kid. Our next question from Aaron in New Hampshire is, of all the places you've traveled, which is your favorite?
Wow. Well, Aaron, I should probably just say New Hampshire. How's that? I don't know where in New Hampshire you are, but I'm in New Hampshire right now. And I'll admit it's raining and it's not the most beautiful day, but this is a beautiful part of the world. And for all of us, I think, you can travel the world, but home is home. I would say this is my favorite place. I'm not much of a city person, but Istanbul is a pretty astonishing place. Barcelona I like a lot, and they're wonderful cities everywhere. But New Hampshire is home.
That's quite nice. Home is where the heart is and all of that. Oh, this is just a nice message. Gayarthi from New South Wales says, I love your books. Now my 3-year-olds can enjoy them too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, this is a better choice for your 3-year-old than the Da Vinci Code, I think.
Although I feel like the kids are definitely picking up the Da Vinci Code and getting into that at a pretty young age.
I mean, I get fan mail from kids who are 13 years old. I'm saying, like, what? Like, when I was 13, I was not reading anything quite that intense.
Well, they're learning all about the facts that you put into all of your books. It's an educational experience. But yes, this might be a more appropriate pick. From Lisa in California, what was an early challenge you faced as a writer?
Wow. Well, it's funny. I guess a lot of writers would say writer's block. I don't actually get writer's block. I get, I'll write a lot of material that I realize isn't going to work. So I think some of the biggest challenges are how to fit, if you have a 1,000-piece puzzle and there are 1,000 pieces there, but the final puzzle is only going to have 100 pieces, trying to pick which pieces are going to make the best puzzle. And you see, like, I can't leave that out. I've got to use that, and you can't find a way to use it. And so having to sort of make a puzzle that's got a weird shape on it such that you can sort of include that. It's, I think that's the biggest challenge of all, is what to finally leave out. It always breaks your heart.
I understand that experience too from an editorial standpoint. Oh my gosh, especially with an author like you where everything is just incredible. Cutting something out just hurts your heart, and you're like, there will be another book. There will be another book.
And we added a lot to this. I mean, as we
oh, and on the flip side, oh, I'm going to butcher this name. I'm so sorry. Shirkita, I think, from North Carolina asks, what do you love most about writing books?
I have always loved the creative process. In university, I studied creative writing and also music composition. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated, I know I want to be a creative person. Should I make music, or should I write novels? And I thought music's going to be much more fun. And I moved out to Los Angeles and was fortunate enough to get a production deal. And I made a record that about 9 people bought. And then had an idea for a novel and wrote Digital Fortress, which about 9 people bought. But it's been an interesting road. But I sort of feel as long as I'm being creative, I'm happy.
That's lovely. I will say a lot more people have now read Digital Fortress.
Yes, yeah, the same book. I haven't changed a word, but millions of people now have Digital Fortress. So that's
fantastic.
That's nice. So that's a message to everybody that whatever those projects are that didn't work, that are in your bottom drawer, there's always hope.
And the early pop career, which is a side of you that I don't think anybody expected. I certainly was very pleasantly surprised when I learned about all of this. I think that's what led you, in a way, to Wild Symphony, and now you have a music career here too.
I know, it's kind of baffling.
Bob from Belgium asks, "What advice would you give to a beginning screenwriter?"
Wow. Well, it's funny. Screenwriting, we talked about limiting your palette. For writing a children's book. Screenwriting is the ultimate limitation of a palette. When you're a novelist, you can jump back and forth in time very easily. You can get in and out of people's heads. You can, omniscient narrator, point of view. When you are a screenwriter, all you have is one point of view, the camera. That's it. And you can't get inside people's heads. So if somebody's hungry, they actually have to say, "I'm hungry." They have to articulate it, or look longingly at a hamburger or whatever, however you're going to show it. So screenwriting is a very specific challenge. To a young screenwriter, I would say the very best thing you can do is to go online and buy copies of the screenplays for all the movies that you love. And they're all available. and just start reading screenplays to see how they're put together. Because the amazing thing about screenplays is when you read them, when you read them off the page, you can't imagine what they're going to look like. But if you've seen the movie and then you read it on the page, you start to understand that transition and how much the production process brings to the script. So I would read a lot. Same for a novelist. Read a lot of novels that you like, and then try to emulate those authors that strike you somehow.
And that brings us to our next question. Anna from Ashkelon, sorry, Anna, asks, what's your advice for a person who dreams about writing a book but finds it very hard to even start?
Yeah, well, a lot of us dream about writing books. It is hard to start. My advice is, the reason you're having trouble starting is that you're being way too hard on yourself. You need to understand that when you go to sit down to write, the only person who's going to see it is you. So let it be terrible. That's the first step of anything, is the bad version. So let yourself write the bad version. Don't show it to anybody. And then go back to it and write a slightly better version. Whatever sentence you're writing, you don't have to think of it as being in a finished book. This is a rough draft. This is the pencil sketch beneath the masterpiece you're eventually going to paint. So my advice is to take it a little easier on yourself, and just write it down and don't let anybody see it. And don't be so self-conscious about what you're writing.
How long did it take you to write your first book?
It took me about 1.5 years. And I was naive. I knew nothing about book publishing. I just had an idea for a book and had read enough thrillers to sort of say, well, I think I can do that. And just sort of set out to write it. And I'll never forget, about halfway through, I thought, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. And gave it to my parents to read the first half. And they said, no, like, this is great. Like, we want to know what happens. And I thought, oh, okay. And I finished the book. And, you finish one book and it will give you confidence that you can do it again. They say that I can't remember what it's something like, out of the 100 people who start books, 10 finish the book. And out of those 10 that finish, only one really is successful. So you have to write for the sake of writing. You have to just absolutely love it. Yes, we all would love to be professional writers and make a living with it. But, I wrote 4 novels that, I was a teacher simultaneously. I just say that just so I could eat. I wasn't making any money, and I was very fortunate to have found an audience. But it doesn't always happen that way. So write for the joy of writing.
Fantastic advice, and right in line with Wild Symphony, I should say. Do what you love. And I have to point out yet again, they're your very supportive and wonderfully creative parents.
There you have it.
All right, we have a slew of Robert Langdon questions. I know that you're probably going to be a little tight-lipped about it, but I'm going to ask them.
Okay.
Know what you can say. We have, what is the subject of your next book? From Anya in Belgium. Can you tell us anything?
Well, Anya in Belgium, that's a bold question. I can't tell you what the topic is, and I can't tell you where it's set, but I will tell you this. Robert Langdon, if you're familiar with my books, you know that Robert Langdon is one of the luckiest guys in the world, because at the beginning of every book, he meets a beautiful cryptologist or, noetic physicist or, doctor who has the exact skill set that he needs and is also a romantic interest. So that's the odds of that are probably not very good in real life, but in Robert Langdon's life, it seems to work out. In this next book, however, it starts in a different way. Robert Langdon he's in a relationship, and he's been in a relationship for the last 3 years. He's very much in love, and he's settled down a little bit. And the woman with whom he's in love is actually a character from one of my previous novels. So that's all I can tell you.
All right. Now I know that you can't answer this question based on that response, but I'm going to tell you that somebody asked this. Mike in Wisconsin asked, Dan, of all the female protagonists featured in Robert Langdon's series, which do you think Robert was most fond of? And I guess we're going to
Wow.
find out in the
We're
next
going to
book.
find out.
That's, oh man, are you itching to get their hands? Let's see what else we have here. Oh, we're almost out of time, so maybe just one more question. I'm going to slightly rephrase Joseph from Winter Park in Florida's question, since I know you can't fully answer it. He asked, what historical city will be next to explore through your writing? And I'm just curious, what historical cities would you be interested in exploring in your writing?
Okay, well, I'm not, the cities I'm going to name are not where my next book is set.
That's a clue too.
You know, I've always wanted to write a book about the Orient. I would love to write about Kyoto, Japan. I would like to write about India. I've spent some time in India recently, and really thought I might be writing about Hinduism, and have come to understand it is, I don't know enough yet to write about it. It's so different from my experience that I'm going to have to keep reading and keep visiting. I'd also like to write about South America, you know, Sao Paulo, or maybe, I don't know, Machu Picchu, or you know, one of those sorts of things. So it's a big world, lots of opportunities.
And it's so fun to explore it with Robert Langdon, or whoever might travel next. And I'll make this our last question.
Right.
From Brooke in Colorado Springs, she asks, if you could have dinner with any composer, who would you choose and why?
Wow. This is going to be a very standard answer. I'd probably choose Bach, because his music is so mathematical and precise and unbelievably creative. I don't know how he did it. I would just love to experience that mind that could in real time write a melody and play the inverse of that melody 2 measures later. Like, I don't know how you do that. I mean, now with computers, it's not that hard, but that's not the way he did it. I would say Bach.
You just want to absorb his intelligence.
There's something happening there that I just don't understand. Yeah. Or Stravinsky, so he could explain his music to me, because I don't get it. So.
Both fantastic answers. So before we sign off, I just wanted to remind everybody one last time, if you still want your signed copy, you can go to premiercollectibles.com/wild, or follow the link in this video to get your very own copy. Dan, do you have any final words about Wild Symphony and what you hope it'll do for kids?
You know what? I hope it inspires an appreciation and enthusiasm for music, and ideally brings parents together with the kids and teachers together with their students, and becomes a catalyst for exploring music.
Incredible. I'm sure it will achieve that, actually. Thank you so much for your time today, Dan.
Pleasure's been mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Nice talking to you. And see you next time.
Hi. I am sitting here with the one and only Jackie Chan, global superstar, and he is signing all of these books. Are your hands tired?
No, tired, but I'm happy.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
really,
so
really
happy
happy.
to hear that.
How do you feel?
Good. I'm excited. This is the first time I've done something like this before, a live signing.
Where do I want to go that I've never been? Oh, we're thinking about, not thinking, we're putting it in motion. I'm going to go to Indonesia on my irresponsible tour this year. I'm excited about that. I've never been. And there's been a heavy demand for me there. So we're going to go. We're going to go to Indonesia, and I'm going to make people laugh in Indonesia. That's how I roll. How do you roll? I can't make this up. Wayne, you got your Indonesia pants? I decided it about a good 3 weeks ago. You'll see it on the schedule soon, so I suggest you go get your pants for Indonesia, because you're not going to wear them stupid pants. Where do you think Indonesia is? India. Yes, we out.
You can see that I'm signing it. This is not some machine scribbling my name. This is my actual human body scribbling my name. So, all right, there we go. First book, signed.
We have fans from all over who have
written questions that they want to ask you.
Oh, dear.
And they're also going to get signed copies of the book. We're so excited.
Yeah.
So you ready to jump into some questions?
Yes.
Hey, we're live at the live signing.
To my mind, the successful feeling at the end of a book is not that you have done everything you could with the book, but that you scratched the surface.
So it was a wonderful, it was a wonderful experience and a wonderful discipline in storytelling.
I'm going to start signing right now. I guess I'll sign in red. You know, red. I'm a Delta. Red.
Can you guys see that? See? There's a little smudge right there. So if you see a little smudge, that means Charles jumped on the book as I was signing it.
I don't mind doing signings because people really love a signed copy of a book. I know I do. I will sometimes sign a book to myself.
You were only 7 weeks old and ABC really wanted to get the new host in that seat and get things going. And I said, but I'm breastfeeding. And by the way, that was at a point like in 1979, coming up on 1980, you really weren't even allowed to say breastfeeding on the air.
I feel like this is something we kind of all need right now.
My life changed after my leg was broken in 1985. My world changed. I had the world by the tail. I had every material thing you could possibly hope for going for you in your life. And then all of a sudden, bang, in one instance, it was gone.
The only thing that matters is the love you give and the love you allow yourself to receive.
I'm healthier than I've ever been, only because I got healthy when I was like 40. Thank you so much.
Got it. Hi there. You probably recognize this guy. I'm Ned Rust. I'm his publisher, James Patterson here, the #1 best-selling author in the world. And did you just make that up? I did some research before I got here today.
We are doing my virtual live book signing.
Live book signing.
This is crazy.
More and more authors are doing this. I think it's so cool.
Signing some of the signed copies that you guys can get at premiercollectibles.com.
You're going to be signing these books live over the next 45 minutes.
Hey, what up, this is I'm watching myself. Look at that. I need to stop.
If you're OCD, how is this panic-inducing to you?
They're not
like
watching
all
anymore.
these.
They've got a bag.
Yeah.
They've got a bag.
I'm inspired by your success. What advice do you give someone who's never found his passion?
Hi, I'm Judge Janine Pirro. You probably heard of my book, Liars, Liberals, and Leakers. I may look like Greg Gutfeld, but I'm not. Actually, this is so exciting. My 8th book, The Gutfeld Monologues, is out. This is fantastic. If you haven't purchased it yet, you're dead to me. But you still have time to reanimate and become my best friend.
Biggest pet peeve? Men that talk to me with spinach in their teeth.
What can I do while at work to help lower my stress and improve my health?
One musician do you most admire?
I love you all, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Much love. See you.
See you soon, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
We'll see you around the world. Woo!
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone here.
Bye, guys.
Say goodbye, Mary.
See you in the morning.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna go get drunk.